Section 1. A stickler for words. What does it mean to be a stickler for words? Is it about precision or is it about being overly meticulous? Let's explore. More like a stick in the mud. Introducing James Hind. James Hind, everyone, a man who has taken the concept of being a stickler for words to an entirely new level. You know, the self-proclaimed literalist. Yes, that's right. James Hind is not just any ordinary person. He is someone who prides himself on his literal interpretations of language. He's famous for taking everything at face value. Imagine reading a text and interpreting every single word exactly as it is written, without considering any underlying meanings or context. No nuance, no subtext, just pure, unadulterated, literal interpretation. For James, a word is just a word and a sentence is just a sentence. There is no room for interpretation beyond what is explicitly stated. According to Hind, if it ain't said directly, it doesn't exist. This means that idioms, metaphors, and any form of figurative language are completely lost on him. He prides himself on this rigid approach to language. To him, this is not just a quirk. It is a philosophy, a way of life. He believes that this method brings clarity and honesty to communication. He claims it's about clarity and honesty, but is it really? Let's dive in. Is James Hind's approach to language truly about being clear and honest? Or is it a way to avoid the complexities and nuances that make communication rich and meaningful? Let's explore the implications of such a literal approach and see if it holds up in real-world scenarios. Section 2, Hind's greatest hits, a literal laugh riot. This section delves into the most hilarious and bewildering moments of Hind's literal interpretations, which have left audiences both in stitches and in utter disbelief. Hind's literalism has led him down some truly bizarre paths. His inability to grasp figurative language has resulted in some of the most unexpected and comical situations you could imagine. Remember when a politician said, "We're going to fight tooth and nail for this"? It was a rallying cry meant to inspire determination and resilience. But Hind, ever the literalist, took it upon himself to demand photographic evidence of dental and manicure weaponry. He wanted to see the actual teeth and nails that would be used in this so-called fight. Or when a comedian joked, "I died on stage last night." It was a common expression in the comedy world, meaning the performance didn't go well. Hind, however, took it quite literally. He sent flowers and condolences to the comedian, believing that the performer had actually passed away during the act. The man seems to have missed the memo on sarcasm, irony, and basically any form of human expression beyond a flat monotone. His interactions are often devoid of the nuances that make communication rich and layered. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, Hind has become a source of endless amusement. His literal interpretations provide a unique lens through which to view the world, one that is both refreshingly straightforward and hilariously out of touch. Imagine the confusion when he first encountered idioms. Phrases like "kick the bucket" or "spill the beans" must have seemed like cryptic puzzles, each requiring a literal solution. Hind's attempts to make sense of these idioms often led to laugh-out-loud moments. Picture him trying to literally kick a bucket or spill a can of beans, all in an effort to understand these common expressions. His friends and acquaintances have learned to appreciate his unique perspective, often sharing these stories as some of the funniest anecdotes in their social circles. Hind's literalism even extends to dates and appointments. If you tell him to meet you at the crack of dawn, you can bet he'll be there waiting as the first light of day breaks. While this can be inconvenient, it also makes him incredibly reliable. You always know that Hind will take your words at face value, no matter how figurative they might be. In the end, Hind's literalism is a gift that keeps on giving. It reminds us to find humor in the everyday and to appreciate the quirks that make each of us unique. Section 3, don't go there. Hind's literal allergy to his own medicine. Here's the kicker. Hind's literalism mysteriously vanishes when it's applied to him. Criticize his views. Suddenly you're misconstruing and taking things out of context. Point out the absurdity of his statements. He cries hyperbole and artistic license. It seems the rules are different for St. James of literalism. He can dish it out, but he certainly can't take it. Section 4, the boy who cried literal. Trust issues arise. This blatant double standard has consequences. How can we trust anything Hind says when he applies a shifting, self-serving definition of literalism? It's like playing a game with rigged rules. He demands strict adherence to his interpretation, but reserves the right to bend reality when it suits him. This isn't intellectual honesty. It's intellectual dishonesty in a cheap, ill-fitting literalism costume. Section 5, Is it real or is it rhetorical? Unmasking Hind's literal charade. So, is Hind a true believer in literalism, or is it a convenient facade, a rhetorical device to shut down dissent and avoid accountability? The evidence points overwhelmingly to the latter. His inconsistent application of his own principles exposes him as a charlatan, a man more interested in winning arguments than engaging in genuine discourse. Section 6, The Perils of Literal Interpretation, a humorous take on Hind's approach. Imagine a world where everyone operated like James Hind. Break a leg would be met with panicked calls to orthopedic surgeons. I'm starving would trigger a humanitarian crisis. The richness of language, the poetry, the humor all gone, replaced by a barren wasteland of literal interpretation. It'd be a world devoid of joy, spontaneity, and frankly, common sense. Section 7, The Importance of Context, Why Hind's Literalism Fails. Language is fluid, dynamic, and deeply embedded in context. Ignoring this complexity, as Hind does, leads to absurd conclusions and misinterpretations. Understanding humor, satire, and metaphor requires looking beyond the literal to grasp the intended meaning. It's about recognizing the speaker's intent, the cultural context, and the unspoken rules that govern communication. Section 8, Beyond the Literal, Embracing Nuance and Intent. Instead of clinging to the literal, we should strive for a more nuanced understanding of language. This means being open to different interpretations, considering the speaker's perspective and acknowledging the limitations of our own understanding. It's about embracing the ambiguity and complexity that make language such a powerful tool for communication. Section 9, The Dangers of Dogmatic Literalism, a case study of James Hind. James Hind serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of dogmatic literalism. His rigid approach to language not only hinders meaningful communication, but also undermines his credibility and exposes him to ridicule. His story is a reminder that language is a tool for connection, understanding, and even humor, not a weapon to be wielded with self-serving rigidity. Section 10, In Conclusion, Hind's Literalism, a comedy of errors. In the comedic tragedy that is James Hind's public persona, literalism takes center stage. Hind, a self-proclaimed literalist, often finds himself entangled in the very words he so rigidly adheres to. His public appearances are a spectacle, a blend of unintended humor and sheer bewilderment. However, the joke is ultimately on him. His attempts to navigate the complexities of language with a literalist approach often backfire, leaving him the butt of the joke. The audience, initially confused, soon finds themselves in fits of laughter, not at the content of his speech, but at the absurdity of his interpretations. His hypocrisy, inconsistency, and lack of self-awareness make him a figure of ridicule, not reverence. Hind's literalism is not just a philosophical stance, it's a comedy of errors. He often contradicts himself, unaware of the irony in his statements. One moment he insists on the literal meaning of a phrase, and the next he twists words to suit his narrative, all while maintaining a facade of unwavering literalism. So the next time someone claims to be a literalist, remember James Hind, and ask yourself, are they truly committed to literalism, or are they just playing a game of linguistic twister, desperately contorting themselves to fit their own self-serving narrative? Hind's journey serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that rigid adherence to literalism can lead to a tangled web of contradictions and unintended humor. In the end, Hind's literalism is less about a genuine commitment to the truth and more about a performance, a theatrical display of linguistic gymnastics. His public persona, marked by a series of comedic missteps, highlights the pitfalls of taking words at face value without considering context or nuance. So, as you navigate the world of language and meaning, take a moment to reflect on Hind's comedy of errors and remember that sometimes the most literal interpretation is not the most accurate or meaningful.